Well, good evening, conservatives of Texas. Alex DeAnda here tonight, speaking with Amarillo resident, longtime resident for over 50 years,
For over 50.
Mr. Jessie Pfrimmer. He's been attending city council meetings for how many years now?
Well, it started back in 2002. That's when I really started going to city council meetings in 2002. Then it elevated once we got into the Tea Party. Then it became a little bit more religious and being awakened to some of these problems with the purchase of the parking garage, building a hotel in downtown Amarillo, developing the convention center into a more accommodating facility. All of that interest drew me down to meetings with Harpole and several meetings in the libraries with Harpole and other citizens questioning the promotion of the what was being done back in the 2008-10 era. And once we got into that conversation, then we saw the progression of the elitists in Amarillo that were wanting these things. And I call them wants. I don't call them needs, but the citizens with money in the city want to develop downtown Amarillo. And by developing Amarillo downtown, those big buildings will now have customers in those big buildings where they were losing customers because the city was actually dying and using those big, large buildings, except for certain buildings.
I see.
And but they've redeveloped it. They brought WT into a little in their own building. They were renting out of space, but they finally gave them a building from the AEDC under the leadership of Ginger Nelson. And when she was the head of the AEDC, they worked that deal for WT getting into that building, and I guess it's a good facility for bringing the West Texas students into downtown Amarillo. But again, downtown Amarillo was divorced from development when Amarillo High died. When Amarillo High burned up, we saw depression in downtown Amarillo because the focus of bringing those students into downtown Amarillo brought people into downtown Amarillo. There was businesses down there. Eventually, it caused us to lose St. Anthony. The St. Anthony project was sponsored by Howard Smith's dad to move the medical facilities out there on the west side of Amarillo. So now that we have all of our medical stuff over there off of Coulter and up there off of north of Amarillo Boulevard, and it's a beautiful thing, no doubt about it. We've got things, but look at beautiful St. Anthony's.
Yeah.
Beautiful St. Anthony's, and we tried to recover that for the benefit of North Heights people so they could use that building for something. We had motels along Amarillo Boulevard. We had all kinds of, and that just all died along Amarillo Boulevard because I came into Amarillo through Amarillo Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come in through I-40. I came in through Amarillo Boulevard, and that's really curious back in the 1960s.
Yeah. Well, as you guys can hear, he's pretty tenured here for the last several decades. So tonight, what we're wanting to discuss, I had made a phone call to Jesse this afternoon, and he had told me that he had made mention that he had been attending several of these most recent budget meetings.
Right. Beautiful.
Yeah. And he had high praise. Tell us a little bit about the aroma as of yet.
Oh, these five gentlemen that we have for our city council are jewels. We are so lucky to have each and every one of them. All five are willing to commit to try to solve problems with the citizens and with the want people of our city and trying to get back to the needs basis of our city. And they are very conscientious of trying to figure out how they can actually run this city government with regard to meeting the needs of our community. And I've been impressed with their conscientious effort to have solutions for some problems of funding and budgeting things. They have great conversations with each of the departments. They visit with all the departments in the city. If you ever been to one of those, just one of the departments, I've got a couple examples here, the police department, the fire department. Awesome conversations with the leadership in those departments and trying to work out understandings. The the last big meeting I heard today, and that was at between 2:45 and 3:15, and that was the COLA example for our city employees. Now, most of us don't like the idea of COLA because it's going to cost us another $1.5 to $2.5 million out of our budgeting. But our council members were trying to figure out how they could afford to do it, and they came up with some budget. This is Mr. Stanley and Mr. Simpson and Mr. Sherlin and Mr. Tips and Mr. Josh. I can't remember Josh's name. Anyway, all of those guys were just so in bed with the idea that we have we have abused our city employees and our police department, fire department by not maintaining the retirement plans that were promised to them back up to 2011, and they took that benefit away from our city employees and was hurting our ability of our police to hire more policemen because they dropped one of the advantages to come to Amarillo because retirement programs were lacking. So our city council, these 5 guys, they sat down and figured out how to come up with another $8 million in the budget where they could then afford to pay for the COLA. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sitting there watching this kind of conversation with my council members. They were not going to spend money like raising the property tax. They were talking about how to take the existing budget that was proposed to them. This was proposed to them, I guess, 6 weeks ago. This was the proposal from Laura. Is it Laura? Laura Stores. Mm-hmm. She proposed these, and these numbers were the very numbers that these gentlemen went and tried to see where in these numbers that they could find savings. And they found savings in areas, and the argument, I'm not going to say the numbers that saved, but it's right now it's on proposition that those savings will be developed, and it will come forward on September the 12th when more budget conversations will come up, and that we, the citizens, will be able to listen to our council members talking about how to hold property tax down due to the high appraisal values that came from Pratt. And our council members worked diligently to try to figure out how to keep from raising the property tax per hundred. And I think they figured a way out. I won't totally agree with some of the things they figured out, but I think in reality, for the benefit of the citizens of Amarillo, I think these men are talking business language, not dealing with just raising tax money to pay for things that we think we want, but pay for things we need. And since we got this Playa Lake problems, we got a real flooding problem. And these guys are already addressing how can our drainage fee pay for all of the weaknesses in building housing in flooded areas. And we're building houses in flooded areas. These guys know it. It's been going on for decades, and yet they're having to address it. And they just addressed the recent flood, and they're saying, we got to deal with it. We got to buy pumps. We got to pull out drainage out of some of these places to make certain we have some drainage ponds to take care of this. We got to take care of the flooding of the Hollywood sewer plant that was flooded and caused a lot of corruption out there at the Hollywood plant. They've got to rebuild that in a way that it can be protected and not get contaminated by flood waters. And these are the kinds of things these young guys are working on. And citizens of Amarillo, you got to be proud of these people. These people are really trying to do the best for all of us. And I would encourage all of you, almost makes me to tears, because I'm so proud of them. I'm proud of Laura Stores, because this woman can really present the information to our council members and try to direct them as to where the monies are, where they're going to have to play with the monies. And she's very diligent in bringing it. And that woman can talk about anything so calmly and go find the information. This document here is about 30 pages. She ran through a file of 800 pages in talking to our council members, and each one of them had to turn to those pages as she was talking about each of the different departments in our city government. It was awesome. I just sat there amazed at these men and their diligence.
Well, great. That's good news.
Yeah, it's great news.
Yes. So by looking at the 23-24 budget summary,
Mm-hmm.
looks like they've already reduced it down to almost 5% with some of the changes that they're looking at. So the original set on the budget was 490,830,000,
Right.
and now we've come down to 467,377,000, which is about what 13,000.
13 million.
Yeah, 13 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so that's good.
That was good.
So on the back here we have the proposed fee changes.
Right.
You were saying something earlier about they're not going to raise our property taxes.
They're not raising the property tax, but they understood that we had a good increase from the appraisal from the PRAD. So PRAD gave them a boost, just like it gave it to Amarillo College,
Mm-hmm.
gave it to AISD, gave it to the Randall County and Potter County. All that appraisal money went up in value. I'm proud of the Amarillo College. They brought their rate down because they knew they were going to get an increase anyway from the appraised value. So the Amarillo College has been very diligent in trying to keep that tax base from being any more than what the appraisal value put on our property increases. But the thing I found interesting about the fees which were a big discussion today, in fact, that was one of the major parts of the discussion today, was all of you that have a water meter, you can anticipate a 50% increase on your, let's say they call it trash, they call it solid waste. The solid waste is going to be raised 50%. That's your monthly pay, which will also be a 50% increase on the sales tax that you pay on that solid waste. Now, I got upset about that, but at the same time, I listened to the complaints that we cannot stop developers from building things in Playa Lakes. We have not the authority to do that. We've already built a lot of things into Playa Lakes, and now that we've built them into Playa Lakes, we got to get the water out of there when we have rain that comes in, and a lot of us in the higher grounds are running our water into the lower grounds, and we just keep funneling it. We're ended up corrupting the Hollywood reclamation plant for our sewer system. So we ended up having a corrupted sewer plant out here because of the flood. And now the city's got to pay for that. They got to rebuild that thing. And for the contamination that came from the flood that contaminated that Hollywood sewage processing plant out there off of Hollywood. And these are the things that our city council is having to address. And they've just been there since what? May 15th? May 20th? I can't remember when they were actually sworn in, but we're now into August, and they've been in city meetings on the budget, and finally a conversation. Some people are upset about it, those that have some difference of opinion, but we felt like our city manager was not in the best interest of the citizens of Amarillo as much as he was in the best interest of the elites of Amarillo. The elites of Amarillo seem to be getting things done for their benefit because they wanted these things. But for the most of us, we only use what they want. The most of us. Now, some of us use it, but most of us don't use what the elites want. And most of us are paying for something we didn't care one way or the other, but we're having to pay for it anyway.
And for example, what are some of these wants that the elites have that you're describing in this part of your conversation? What do you mean by that?
Well, my definition of want was the definition of an MPEV. An MPEV was the multipurpose event center that was sold to us by the former president of the college. I can't remember his name, but he was the one that said in Breadside Manor on Fox News and everything else, telling us that the MPEV was something that we could have all of these special events to offset the cost and development of the convention center. And we were
president of Amarillo College made that claim.
He was doing it on national TV and everywhere else, just like we.
Dr. Larry Hart, or
no, before Dr. Larry Hart.
Okay.
Before Dr. Larry Hart. No, Dr. Larry Hart didn't do this. This was done by the guy that was a former meteorologist of KVII or KMAR.
I see.
But he became the president of our college, Amarillo College, and he was one of those who were constantly advertising at the MPEV, and we were going down there as Tea Party people arguing that we did not want an MPEV because we didn't need a baseball field in downtown Amarillo. Well, no, we're not having a baseball field. We're having an MPEV. But today, everybody calls it a baseball field. They don't call it an MPEV anymore. So we were sold, and then we were told it was going to be $35 million. It's $85 million. We were told it's going to be paid by the hotel tax. We were told that the parking garage is going to be paid for by the hotel tax. We were told that we were going to get a brand new hotel that belongs to us, the citizens of Amarillo, because we developed the lot where Embassy Suites built their hotel on. We have hotelers in Amarillo that had to build their own hotels. They have to build their own parking lots. They have to have a parking space for each room that they have in their hotel. But Embassy Suite did not build any parking lot. They used the street and they used the parking garage. But the parking garage was built by us to make it possible for them to have it. And what did we do with the parking garage? We set it on top of a parking lot that belonged to our Globe Center. So now then people that had, and this was argued by citizens that had lifetime, and these were 75, 80-year-old women that came up and talked at city councils under Harpo's leadership that said, you're going to make me walk through a parking garage to get to the Globe Center? I didn't have to do that. All I had to do is park in the parking lot, and there was probably about four slots from walking inside the Globe Center. Now I've either got to cross Pierce, from a parking lot across Pierce, or I got to walk through a parking garage or go up in a parking garage. It doesn't even have an elevator. I'm an old woman saying, and these are people that are arguing back in the Harpo era against the parking garage.
So
we built the parking garage. We took away the parking lot for the Globe Center, and we, the citizens, are paying for the loss of revenues that they do not receive for the Globe Center. That was sold to us that all the elitists were going to go to the Globe Center, and now we're still paying for that out of our tax base, what the overhead that they don't have enough people that come in and use the Globe Center. But we're paying for it as taxpayers. We're paying for Hodgetown too.
So something you're getting at is the elitists that wanted the Globe News Center and all those other things brought in some some effects to the point where it caused an issue for other people in the other onset. So I've heard you preach that for many years: wants versus needs, wants versus needs,
wants versus needs.
And so I'm glad to hear that you're pleased with the new city council.
I love this city council. They're trying to solve problems.
So looking at the budget here, I'm going to just comment on the change, okay, since it's where we're at now. So general fund operating, looking at $244,784,000. Water and sewage.
That's being reduced.
It's going to be reduced even from the 244?
The general fund is going to be reduced.
Even more, okay.
That's what they're looking at through some other things that Cole has recognized in these studies of each of these departments. Now, did they mention how they're going to reduce these items? Did they go that far? Partly out of diminishing the size of certain organizations that maybe were overstaffed.
I see.
But they see some other weaknesses in staffing, which I have the document over there, that right now they have this budget set up with about 230 openings in the present staffing. But Cole was looking at one organization that seemed to be overstaffed, and he was saying there's some potential dollar saving there if they looked at how they were going to deal with it. Since we have purchased the new Civic Center, and they're in the process of renovating at $31 million. And that's coming out of that was done by the prior council. Mm-hmm. This council's has to deal with it because it was handed to them.
Sure.
And the contracts were let before in May, and they didn't take office until late May. So it was done. It was done by the former city manager, and nothing was done with the idea we got to see what this next council will do. They went ahead on it.
One thing I noticed, or I've heard also, was the guff, the riff, the chasm between supervisors in departments versus foremen. You could have a supervisor making $80,000-$90,000.
Mm-hmm.
The person that they're overseeing just right underneath them, the department manager or the
guy's doing the work.
was
too much disparity.
Was 40,000.
Right.
Have you heard that before?
I haven't heard the arguments, but I think that's some of the conversation that this council is going to address. Is that I think I don't know, as you know, I don't know if you do know, but as of Wednesday afternoon at 3:45, Mr. Jared Miller was no longer an employee of the city, but we're paying him $1 million or so.
Did they go into how they come up with the figures at all?
They did not go with the disposition of his resignation or anything. They just went through the fact that they know that they found no fault. They're not saying this or that. They're not identifying a fault. They're just defining that they think that we needed a different person at the helm of running our city than what we had under Jared.
Are you in agreement with that?
I will tell you some of the examples that I didn't appreciate that Jared was responsible for. Okay. All through the time I was going up until Jared became city manager, you could walk into the office in the upstairs third floor of the office, and you just walk in and you start talking to anybody you want to.
Mm-hmm.
He put a obstruction on there so that you had to get attention of the secretary to let you come in. Otherwise, you had to have a key fob to exercise the opening of that door.
I see.
But that was a beginning to isolate the citizens from our government. It was a first stepping stone to isolate the government, city government, from us, the citizens, which are the employers of that government. And if you look at the Constitution of the United States, we, the citizens, are supposed to be able to freely address our government. He started putting stumbling blocks into that effort of having a conversation. I'm not saying you couldn't still call them on the telephone. You could send emails to them. You could do these kinds of things, but it was just the appearance. And then as you went into city council meetings, we started getting more restrictions on how long do you get to speak. We had situations where it was 2 minutes because we have 15 speakers. So you only get 2 minutes to speak about your concerns to the council in that little interim time. Under Harpo, you had 3 minutes, but you could do it at the end of the meeting. You didn't do it at the beginning. You did it after they had their conversation. And then you could have as many people as you wanted to under the Harpo, and I presume under some of the other, but I'm strictly a Harpo guy.
When it comes to the budget, is there anything on here in the numbers that
not for me, no.
you really like, or that you have a question on as to why they made the decision to?
No, that's one reason my hat's off to these guys, because they got down into the nitty gritty of each of these concerns and trying to get the answer. And they put good time on this. I've been to 7 of their meetings and they've done 8.
So something that I've heard you speak on in the past is your spreadsheet for your water bill over the course of the last 20 years or so.
Right.
Does that look like it's going to be something that is
It's going to go up on starting October 15th. When the end of the fiscal year comes in, they're going to kick in an increase. You're going to see an increase automatically, whether you use war water or not water. You're going to see an increase, 50% increase on your solid waste charges. The base pace is going to go up to $22. I have to go back and look at the numbers.
Sure.
I could get my numbers here and show you, but that base rate of 2023 is now going up 50% on solid waste. It's going to go up 8% on the drainage fee, and from Mr. Floyd Hartman, in addressing what I've been complaining about, is why do you charge the base rate of water and sewer and you keep increasing it 5% when people that are on a fixed income aren't watering their yards?
Mm-hmm.
They're not using a lot of water to water a yard, but the people that water their yards and have to spend water out into the streets and the gutters and everything, and then fill up our Playa lakes with water that they don't control when they irrigate their lawns, those people are going to be charged a higher rate. But those people that have 3/4 inch, they call them 5/8 inch meters, 5/8 inch and 1 inch meters, their base rate will not go up. It will stay at what it is now. For me, I praise Mr. Hartman for going ahead and seeing that was a dishonest thing to keep punishing the lower people. I'm frustrated with the 50%. I'm frustrated with the 8%, but I understand why they have to do it to address this problem of dumpsters. They say we have, I think they said 16,000 dumpsters in Amarillo. They're wanting to replace those 16,000 dumpsters with brand new dumpsters, and they've got it on a 13-year replacement cycle, and to pay for the dumpster replacements. Now, some of you people are on curbside carts. That's the only problem I've had with this conversation about solid waste. They don't mention the cost of curbside carts. And I don't understand that logic, because I know it costs more money to run a truck to pick up curbside carts than it does to run a truck to pick up dumpsters. Dumpster picks up 4 houses at one time going one direction. Curbside carts, he has to go up and down the street twice, and he may have upwards of 4 carts in front of an individual house. So it takes him longer to go a whole street of 20 houses than it takes to go a whole street of 20 houses with the dumpster. So the cost to run curbside cart service is more expensive. Now, I talked with the guy in charge of that, but I just found out he's only got 1 more week in office. And so that's another transition I have problems with. That was one of my concerns about Jared Miller, was I could never talk to a city lower foreman or manager before in 2 months they weren't there again. I could never have a complete conversation under Jared Miller's administration, that when I'm talking to a person about an issue that is of concern for that community, invariably that person's not there anymore. And so it's like you're starting all over again with brand new personnel. And this is where I think there's some, I don't know whether this is a conversation with our city council as to why they got rid of Mr. Miller or had accepted his resignation. Well, they didn't accept it. They requested his resignation. And
on that, just real fast.
Sure.
So the reason that they stated was what again?
No reason.
So, I mean,
they said they were.
I agree with it, but Jared isn't asking why. Was he present? Was he there?
He was sitting in the well, they were being discussed, and there were supporters that were there, but they were from the want group of our community.
Yeah.
The want group of our community were very unhappy with the fact that this was a decision made by this council. But those want people only show up to meetings once in a century. The people on need show up on a regular basis to try to see if there's any way we can change the direction the city's going. And under Jared Miller, we never got any satisfaction.
Yeah. Well, the previous city manager named Jared Atkinson. He's the city manager of Lubbock.
Lubbock, even a bigger salary than he had here in Amarillo.
And I think they give him some type of package to leave as well. When he let, I mean, it wasn't this council.
They gave him they did, yes.
Severance of some sort. I don't know if that's the right language, but
in the neighborhood of $300,000 to be away and they paid him 2 months salary. I think this one is a 3-month salary. But you can see it online. If you go online, they've got the severance agreement. pretty hefty chunk of change. And Jared Miller made out financially quite well.
Mhm.
But in, of course, to Cole Stanley's comments, he did not condemn Jared Miller.
Yeah.
He held Jared Miller's high praise for some of the things that he accomplished, and he did not slam Jared Miller. He just thought that the city needed to go in a different direction.
I see. So, off the top of your head,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the departments that you think, the areas where we could save some money? Have you ever thought of that? And are any of these areas some that you think that they're going to probably look at, possibly?
I'll have to confess, I'm not certain. I was surprised to listen to Cole actually giving up an example of cutting his salary.
Well, the reason I ask is because last week when I heard some of the comments, the library came up several times.
Several times. That was a big concern.
So is there some talk?
There's always a talk. With Cole, he's always open for the conversation. Deciding, it's conversation right now. And the library has had many people come up to voice their concern about cutting the support of the library, that the library is a viable part of our education system. And there have been good spokespersons come before the council. The council listen to 20 or 30 people. That's another nice thing about this council.
Yeah, they'll let you extend.
You talk 3 minutes and you keep going, just keep on going. Cole does not stop you. He does not say, Mr. Whatever, sit down. You've had your 3 minute. Keep interrupting the person when they're talking. I saw him do this with 2 former city council members, Howard Smith and Eddie Sauer, both talked for additional 5 minutes when they voiced their disagreement with the direction the council was considering going on the situation of Derek.
And I did hear Cole thank Eddie Sauer for his service.
Cole is a statue of character, and we are so fortunate to have that leader.
He's a great mayor.
He is a great mayor, and we as citizens should pray to God that he is the leader of our city. And we only have him for 2 years, because I don't know if he can take this, because he does have his own business, but he's fighting for all of us, and he's not leaving any stone unturned and not coming up with some pretty good practical budgetary concerns about how to address the needs of our city. The needs of our city, not the wants, but the needs of our city. And he's very conscientious along with the other 4 men. And I think we as citizens need to really give high praise to them.
Whatever vineyard talk there is out there, people say I heard it through the grapevine, whatever created this, I guess, these opportunities of making talking points last week concerning the library, whatever it was that stirred that up.
Right.
I want to speak on that just a little bit. The library that I go to, I do use the library. I utilize it there in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think it's more cost effective for me not to use up my ink and my printer. I'll just go down there and spend a few dollars. Plus I help, their cause a little bit.
Yeah.
But I will say this, that there's no need for 7 people in that library. There's only 2 people in there that I've ever seen in every hour that I've been there. Now the downtown library, it's even less. And we're looking at, I don't know how many square feet, but that's 2 levels. And
all the offices are in
I may have seen 4 people in that whole library the several times that I went to the downtown, and then it's open till 9. I don't know. I think that is probably an area that they could shave back some things or create other markets for that building, for those employees. That's going to give you some type of margin of effect to the point where it can stimulate the enterprise dollars in some facet, get something for your return.
Well, that's been the conversation about actual number of people to do services of the library, but all of the people that use the library system, the ones that are somewhat committed to using the library system, they're always arguing, I can walk into the library, I can deal with child education because they sponsor child education programs, they sponsor They sponsor health care problems with parents, young women with children,
Mm-hmm.
and they help. Those are hidden activities if you don't have small children. If you have small children, then you're using those facilities. But if you're just walking in to get a book or you want to sit down and read the newspaper, or if you want to do some work with the computer,
right?
But if you go and use a reference center, the reference center will always take you back where you can find a book. You don't go to the Dewey Decimal System to find a book. It's all in alphabetical order. Well, to set up the alphabetical order, that takes some talent. I don't know if any of y'all ever tried to decide how to put a book back in a particular slot so that you can find it with the next customer. My hat's off to the library with the number of books that they have to.
Sure. And just thinking, maybe they can offer some services such as Kinko's and Office Depot. You know how they have their print area. Yeah. Maybe they could offer some services that would reach that spectrum of service for the general public, and maybe charge a little bit less. Say Kinko's charges $3 for a service, maybe they could charge $2. I don't know. Just maybe expand their services to the effect where they could start to pour in some money into the enterprise.
Well, the big problem is deciding if that's what they want to go into competition with Kinko, or if they want to let Kinko support the city with the library.
Well, I love the private market. Don't get me wrong.
That's my only problem with the government getting involved in competition. Because they're paying taxes. So I don't know what to say about the library, and that's what Cole was saying. Because Cole and Josh and Tom and Les and Don, they're recognizing we got to figure out if we can cut the budget in certain areas, and we're trying to make certain that we're not going to cut the wrong thing. And you got to give these guys, because they have spent, they're only getting paid $10 for that meeting and maybe a meal, but they're going in at 8:00 in the morning and coming out at 3 to 5 in the afternoon.
And tell us a little bit about that. What are the hours that you're looking at so far that these guys are committing to our city?
Well, I've already been to 7 of their meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been sitting in their meetings right there at 8:00 in the morning down at the convention center. And we sat there until Cole said, well, you think we need to take a break? Now, you understand, if we take a break, you got 15 minutes, then we got to get back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And they come back in there chewing their sandwich. You said, let's get back to work. These guys are not playing. They don't take off an hour for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And then look for somebody to give them a fan to cool off from the heat. They're right back in there opening pages, papers, looking at numbers, listening to Laura Storrs as she's going through, and then listening to each of these directors of these different departments explaining their situation, their budgets, their needs, their employee breakdown, all of these things. And they're sitting there and writing notes to themselves, and then interjecting some thought back to Laura in regards to the budget on those issues.
I have heard, and it's from a very good source, that they don't phrase it like this, but they call some of these positions in the city, I'll call it what I'm going to call it. They're Easter egg positions. Once Cole and company find out about these Easter egg positions, that's going to be somewhere where they can save a lot of money. And what I mean by that is these positions were created in past years to solidify an individual,
right, for
whatever reason.
Now, whatever reason,
they created a position for that person, and we'll just say a safety position, where this person just basically, rolls out certain little classes or whatever the case is. But I've heard that some of those positions were created because there was one reason or the other that it had to be created, and then they're paying some of these people $80,000.
They could be. That could be being government employees. I mean, government employees get pretty good.
I would look in those areas if I was on. Maybe they already have. I bet you if I had to throw a dart in the dark, I bet you it would be at least 10 positions. That's $800,000, you know, and I have it from a very good source, not a purposeful one. It just, I stumbled on it, and they had told me some things.
I would suggest if you had any of that you would pass it by one or two of the council members, see if they can review that situation. Sure. That's one thing I like about these council members. They're not about protecting anybody. They're about doing what's best for the city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if they think there's some unnecessary positions, and that is one of the recommendations that Cole recognized in one department,
sure.
that he was already looking at savings us. And that's going to be reviewed by Laura, and she's going to come back to the.
Have you ever heard of department employees parked under trees in past years, taking, some snooze breaks to the?
I contend that some employees can take advantage of it, but that's your downstream employees. Now, I don't know what the management level upstream is, but I do know that was one thing that Cole complimented Jared on, was his upper level staff was very competent individuals. My concern is I think that maybe in the lower levels of the staffing, there's some weaknesses that now, they're considering.
I do want to express that I think that those things that have occurred in the past were probably reflective of individuals that were working for the city that probably didn't enjoy their jobs.
That could be.
And I'm excited now to see that we have leadership as we
Let's
do.
Listen to the employee.
I almost guarantee you those things will not happen. I think the staffing now, those people that are working for the city, will actually they're enjoying their work because they're behind a group of council members and leadership that they actually love to go and work for. So that makes a big difference. So
I think
kudos to the new team. Kudos to you, Cole. Thank you for your leadership.
Absolutely.
And, we wish you well, Jared. I don't know,
we wish the best for Jared, but at the same time, I think that even though it's going to cost us $1 million to accept his resignation.
How long was he here?
They said 7 years.
7 years.
I think they said 7. He got here and let's see, this is 23. Well, let's see. Ginger Nelson's been there 6 years. And I think it's 7.
Okay.
He came in April 7 years ago.
Guys, I will take pictures of these and put them in the comment section. The budget summary.
That's going to be changed on September the 12th.
Okay. I'll update it.
It'll be online.
And then the proposed fee changes, I'll put those in the comment section. And then once they're updated, I'll revise that. So, Jessie, thank you for going over some of this with me.
Yeah.
And for the viewers out there, what do you have there?
Well, I was going to show you that I had a document here that's this one right here. That one right there shows you that right now we're down 230 employees from this budget.
Okay.
This budget says there's 230 employees.
Okay.
That's already been cut out, but they're in this budget. They've already been cut out, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be replaced, because some of those are places that really need some help.
Sure.
But some of the others are going to.
Do we know which areas by any chance?
That's what Cole and those guys are investigating carefully.
Okay.
To see.
Well, I ran into a city employee just Saturday.
Yeah.
He was a meter reader.
Okay.
And one thing that was his
complaint,
I don't like to use a negative word, concern, was the pay.
Yeah.
And the thing is, guys, is if you can go to Arby's or Brahms or almost any other place, and get almost the same pay, if not a little more,
mm-hmm. And
you're not
conditioned building.
You're gonna get out of that department if it's a little stressful. He was working on Saturday, so they were, I guess what he told me, they're shorthanded. That puts a lot of stress, and if he looks down the road and sees a Sonic and they're paying about the same, he may just go over there. So what I'm getting at is the marketplace. Is it competitive? And so I can guarantee you guys, if in some of these areas, I know, and I give you praise for reducing, but I want to say that I really believe, and I used to run $1 million business in my previous career. So competition does a couple of things. It brings forth better production, and it brings forth you retain your people, because if you're constantly training different folks, that's going to cost you in the long run also. But I say retention. And I mean, if you look at that dynamic, it does pay huge dividends to the effect of you're going to get better production from your team because they want to stay there. They're getting paid good money. You're not going to have to lose them to someone down the street for a few dollars more.
Right.
Then pour in money and retraining another set of 2 or 3 guys. I really would hope that they would look at giving some of these employees some raises across the board, $3 or $4. You know,
what I would recommend to my city, is decide upon alleys or street utilities. Which utility do you want the definition for Amarillo? Right now, we have some membership that says they don't care for alleys. I like alleys, but I like asphalted alleys.
Sure.
I don't want grass growing in the alley. I don't want grass growing over the tops of the water meters and the different meters, the gas meters. We're going to have utilities wherever that meter is. That has to be a protection zone that prevents the meter reader from having to walk through weeds and brush and everything else to get to the meter.
Sure.
And I don't think we're recognizing that some citizens do not recognize, if you can't find your meter, guess how your meter is finding that meter. And I've talked to citizens in Amarillo that they don't even know where their meter is, and they think it's the responsibility of the city to get access to the meter. No, it's your responsibility as a citizen. And I would suggest you talk to the city, because the alleys are drainage for your lot. So if you want to talk about drainage, we need to be talking to the city about putting in asphalt alleys so that our trucks, if they're going to service our dumpsters in the alley, they do not get stuck in the alleys, because the alleys are filled with mud. I've seen too many alleys that are dirt alleys, and the trucks get stuck in those dirt alleys in heavy rains, or other kinds of contributions like people watering their lawns, and their lawns water runs into the alley, and the alley gets wet, and then the truck comes through there trying to pick up a dumpster, or even a meter reader has to walk down through that mud to get to the meter, and then he finds nothing but a pile of weeds stacked on top of that meter, and he can't even find it.
What lasts longer, you think, concrete or asphalt? What should they use?
I'm just going to use my lot. My lot has had asphalt in it for 22 years. It was put in after I got in here.
Would you settle for meeting them in the middle and get cleachy?
No.
That's a no.
No, I would say, for the benefit of not having the availability of weeds growing in,
there you go,
that you cover those weeds up, and you make certain that our trucks are not compromised by going. And this is all service trucks. I mean, we got different service people that use those alleys, and I think partly some of these alleys that have asphalt is because they are access for garages. So garages are using those. But I think in a lot of the city, I would say North Heights and some of those areas, I know Edgefield is an area that they took away their alleys and they put in curbside carts. And people are upset over their curbside cart because they've gone from 1 cart up to 4 carts in front of their houses. And they're in a curbside. Well, why do you have 4 carts? Well, guess what you put in a curbside cart? Your trash, or your weeds, or your wood products, and you got to have a curbside cart to put it in, because they won't pick it up if it's not in the curbside cart. So you got to have a curbside cart.
Maybe we'll reach out to some folks that live in these neighborhoods and sit down with them and see what the pros and cons are.
Well, that's what I would say. If the citizens would like to have an address about the what we call the I don't want to call it trash.
Solid waste.
Solid waste. Yeah, I call it trash or sanitation. Everybody gets upset when I call it sanitation. It's not sanitation. Solid waste. That is a big thing that we're paying in our water bill, and people call it the water bill. It's not the water bill. It's 4 bills in one, and they're raising the rates on those because they have some needs out there that money is going out to address. But I still contend the meter reader is not being confident. Take care of.
I believe it was last July.
Yeah.
We had issues with pickup.
Yeah.
What has been said?
Well, that goes back to your employee base.
Okay.
That's what you were just making your comments.
So it's changed. I mean, we went back to twice a week.
We went back to twice a week because evidently he got a $19. He got a $19 per hour for their truck drivers.
And what were they making before?
I think they were down around $14 an hour. So they raised them $5 an hour.
And they have CDLs, right?
Yeah, they have CDL.
See,
And that was another big problem because
what I'm getting at.
You had to have a trained person,
I'll say,
licensed person to drive that truck.
And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm just grabbing a number out there.
Yeah.
Anyone with a CDL could probably go to Coca-Cola.
Absolutely.
Pepsi.
Or,
numerous jobs and get $26 an hour.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is why the city, and this was done under Jared Miller, that he went out and he said, okay, but then right quickly after that, he's already talking about we need to raise that sanitation.
Solid waste.
That solid waste fee on every water meter in town. Well, I know that's going to upset a lot of people that say, I'm not using any more water. I don't want to use any more. And that's not water they're raising all these other fees. And you got to remember, we got people employed to take care of your trash out of your building.
Sure.
And if you're not taking care of that person, like that meter reader and that trash guy, they're your responsibility. They're your employee. You should be trying to protect those guys with making certain that your trash is not stacked around your dumpster, that your trash is in that dumpster, or your trash is down to a small enough size that it gets in the dumpster. I mean, some people just think that we need to abuse these people that are city employees that are trying to help us have a clean city, and we as citizens don't think it's our responsibility. We think it's somebody else. No, you're not paying for that. You're paying a guy to pick up your waste.
And the City of Amarillo, please, utilize the service of the cherry pickers. It says on the trash can what number to call. Put your couches and
they're doing better on that.
Your washers and dryers.
But they have
call the number, put them out in front on the street, and they'll come out there within I want to say 2 days at least.
Well, the guy that was
alley,
the manager of the department, Alan Harder, is leaving the city in 7 days.
Yeah.
Last year, he was out driving a picker to pick up that trash because he didn't have enough employees.
Oh, well.
See, we've lost good people with those kinds of things because this Alan was a guy that was involved, but at the same time, he's going on greener pastures.
Well, I'm going to be praying. I truly believe that if we raise the wages, it'll be competitive.
But we have to raise.
Folks will stay here. And I know at first it seems a little off since we've reduced the budget, but I think if we increase in the wages, you're going to save down the road because you're not going to have to constantly be replacing and training folks. And so that's just my 2 cents.
Well, there's also another thing they're thinking about is maybe they can go out on contract, a lot more on contract, and not being that the city be doing these things that maybe contractors leasing their equipment rather than having to have a staff maintain their equipment, but just lease equipment. They're looking at that as a possible opportunity.
We'll
There's all kinds of things. This group of guys are business guys.
Yeah.
And they're looking at everything from a business concept of how to make it more practical to run city efforts.
The thing is these folks that are now running it know what it feels like. I'm going to give the illustration. You hear that guy on that motorcycle that's going 80, 90 in a residential. He's never hit the ground before, so he doesn't know what it
He doesn't know what it's going to feel like.
These guys know what it feels like. They're business owners. They were in
know
the
what
business
it's
market.
like.
They know what, the cause and effect of the margin is. And so I'm gonna contribute that to being a major reason why their sensibility is on high alert. So good job, guys. In the last 5 minutes, I do want to discuss, Amarillo College just they have an interim. They have an interim right now, Denise Skinner.
Mm-hmm.
And what are your views on how they should elect another person? Do you think that should go to the people of Amarillo, or should we keep that in the hands of the regents? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I don't know how we can actually have a voice in the selection, since that's the process of our electing the regents. So I don't know that it can really. The only thing I can say as citizens, you should be going to the regent board meetings, and there's places set aside. And if we had standing room only participation, I contend that the citizens of Amarillo need to show that they have a vested interest in getting a person to run Amarillo College in accordance with our value system. Now then, if our value system is progressive and it's on we're going to deal with people's gender identification, we're going to deal with people's racial identification, we're going to deal with people's financial conditions in such a way that we go out and hire staff that accommodates victimhood and not accommodate education. It's your decision as a citizen. Do you want your students taught information, or do you want them taught how to be a victim and look to the taxpayer to absorb your victim status?
What is it right now that we're paying towards the college in our taxes? Do you know that number? I think the public schools.
Oh, the national number? You mean as far as property tax?
Mm-hmm. Have you ever looked at that figure?
I just know that this particular regents is going to lower the property tax rate, but it's not. It's still going to be an increase because of the Pratt.
What I would suggest, folks that are going to be watching this,
jot
this number down. It's 806-371-5000. That's your basic contact number to the college. Get to the right area, and I would maybe have a conversation with somebody there on how you would want the regents to choose somebody. In a perfect setting, I wish that we could elect.
Yeah, we can't
ourselves, but we elect the regents.
The regents,
they represent us. So if they represent us, get a hold of the regents. Call the 371-5000. See if you can get the email list for these regents, and spend a few minutes speaking to the regent through email or through a phone call, and let them know what your values are and what you would like them to look at when they decide. From what I understand, we've had the Aspen Institute,
mm-hmm.
and you may remember, some of you folks out there, us talking about that as conservatives of Texas. I mean, there's just no place for some of these things that they're proposing
mm-hmm.
when it comes to
faculty selection.
White Christian nationalists is what they're calling it, and they're correlating that with white supremacy. I mean, there's no place for that, guys. So what I understand is they're looking for someone else as a president that is in that arena. So please get on the phone, get the email list, and express your values, and keep a copy of that. So when it comes around to re-election time,
mm-hmm.
for these folks that didn't listen to you and they're supposed to be listening to you as representation, as regents for the people in the community, I would share those responses.
Well, I definitely hope that you would get involved in finding out where the regents are meeting and go to those meetings.
So right now the meetings are on what days?
It's the fourth Tuesday of each month. But the best thing is to find out, because they have special meetings that they go ahead and have, but they also have different locations. They sometimes be at the East Campus, or sometimes be at the West Campus, sometimes they'll be downtown campus, sometimes they'll be at Hereford, sometimes they'll be at Dumas. So they will be having their Regent Board meeting at 5 or 6 different locations. And so you have to know, you may know the date, you may know the time.
Well, they have these online also, right? They're recorded.
It's all online.
Okay. But if you want to speak, you have to be present.
And they will allow you to speak. That's the nice thing about it. They're very accommodating. The board is very accommodating, listening to citizens. So it's a friendly environment. It's boring because you're just there to listen what those regents have to hear, and those regents are going to have to make the decisions on these issues. But you can be there to listen and offer some support to theologies that they want to hear coming from the community. And if your theology is that we're all victims, well, you probably would like an Aspen Institute president. If you want our society to be taught that we are not victims, we are here to be educated, and our education is based on our own drive and our own desire to be uplifted. And it's not up to the college to just carry you through as a victim of your particular gender, skin color, ethnicity, or whatever other thing. I mean, it shouldn't be part of our education system.
Wouldn't you agree, Jesse?
I don't think.
Wouldn't you agree that we're electing these regents, and we would like them to reflect our value system, not what Aspen is proposing, because they're pouring out, large sums of money. I mean, that to me is not the way it's supposed to work. When we went to the League of Women Voters forum, a lot of the, folks running that were the incumbents were asked, who do you listen to, basically? And they said the president. Well, they're not supposed to listen. They're supposed to listen to us.
Yeah.
So nonetheless, guys, that's it for our,
thank you all.
Our broadcast. Yeah, thank you, Jesse. We do have our website that you can go visit us on. It's Conservatives of Texas, EST2019.org. I'll put the link in the comments. We have, of course, our Facebook and then our YouTube channel at the same name, Conservatives of Texas, EST 2019. We really appreciate you guys. That's all I have.
Thank y'all. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Jesse.